Kia ora toto. It's my pleasure now to introduce the Hon Paul Goldsmith, the Minister of Science and Innovation. Minister Goldsmith is responsible for the National Science Challenge policy and therefore has a keen interest in how well our challenge is going and the progress we're making towards the goals that we have set. Paul Goldsmith lives in the Epsom electorate in Auckland, entered Parliament in 2011. He has, though, had a long association with the science portfolio, dating back, I think, to when you were working in Simon Upton's office in the mid-1990s. And also in between, he's written several historical biographies with a common thread running through some of them around innovators and innovation in New Zealand's economic development. So well qualified from that historical perspective and interest perspective to take on the science and innovation portfolio. Paul became a minister in 2014 and Minister of Science and Innovation in 2016. We look forward to your comments, Minister, and any guidance you can give us about expectations of national science challenges and the results of this one that you expect of this one in particular. Thank you.
Well, thank you, James. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ēnā maunga whakahi, ēnā wai korero o tēnā moka puta noa I Aotearoa. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's freezing in here. What's the matter with this place? I can't stop shaking. I'm so cold. So thank you for putting up with the fridge and the work that you've done. I do want to acknowledge Dr. James Bowalder, Dr. Andrea Byram, Dr. Richard Gordon, the Chief Executive of the Challenge Host Landcare, members of the Challenge Kahui Māori, an independent science advisory group, and Challenge parties and stakeholders, and iwi, and the many distinguished guests that we have here today. I do want to thank you for the opportunity to say a few words this evening, and really primarily to encourage you in the work that you do and the very important work that you do. Crazy and Ambitious is the title, as you know. Apparently it's trending on Twitter. I've steered clear of that for obvious reasons. It's not helpful in politics, I don't think. Well, maybe it is. But in recognition of Sir Paul Callaghan's vision for a predator-free New Zealand, and we all know the context of that. I mean, I'm like anybody. We live in a wonderful, wonderful country here in New Zealand, one of great natural beauty, the forests, the coastline, so in such easy reach of most of us. But for many, we share that love of the natural environment is tinged with sadness when we think of how much better it could have been if we hadn't lost so much. These islands that we live in were so isolated from humans till a split second ago in geological time, and it was incredible. I remember going. James mentioned that I used to work with Simon. I remember heading off to the Catlins one day and seeing this ancient rimu tree, which I think people might have heard of, which definitely would have been grazed by a moa, and it was 800 or 900 years old, and thinking, no doubt the moa would have been casting a wary eye for the Haast eagle, and we just missed all that. And so that history, which we all share, whether it's Māori or Pākehā or recent migrants to New Zealand, explains our determination to hold on to what remains. And I'm an optimist, notwithstanding all the challenges that we have, obviously with myrtle rust at the moment and the anxiety that causes, and the anxiety around kauri dieback. I'm still an optimist. My favourite place in the world is up in the Waitakere Ranges, where I've got a place, and I look out on a landscape that was clear-felled 130 or 40 years ago, and farmed, but has been regenerating for 70 or 80 years, and is a magnificent forest now. And I just think, and I look at it, and every year it gets better, and we don't have to do anything, it just gets better. And in 50 years' time, all going well, it will be just an incredible place. And so there is so much that we have got cause for optimism about, but we're very mindful of the need to do everything we can to better understand this treasure trove that we've been bequeathed. So the Māori name for the biological heritage challenge, as you know, of course, is Ngā Koi Ora Tuku Iho, and refers to the handing down or inheriting of things biological. And these sentiments are reflected in the challenge and its objective, and it's important not only that that this conference gives you the opportunity to showcase all the marvellous research that's going on, but to bring together all the researchers, the iwi, the other stakeholders to discuss and debate the ideas that this challenge is all about. Because as we know, the challenges are tackling large and complex issues. So if we step back and I suppose just give you a little bit of a sense of the context for this, much of what national government sets out to do is to, I suppose, improve the living standards of New Zealanders, and whether that's either through a stronger or more resilient economy that creates jobs and opportunities for all, or through delivering better public services such as health and education, which improve the quality of our lives and the lives of our families and the community in which we live. That I suppose, is something that takes up a big chunk of what we as government focus our attention on. But it's not all that we set out to do. I see a key role for government in preserving and enhancing what is special about New Zealand. And that's where we often think of our physical environment, but it extends beyond just our physical environment. It's about our way of life, our social cohesion, our relatively high levels of trust. All those things are special ingredients about what makes New Zealand what it is. But so improving living standards, preserving what's special about New Zealand. The other key part, of course, is we're 4.5 million people living here who have a contribution to make to the wider world. And so when I look at science and innovation, I see the ability to contribute powerfully to each of those three areas. That world-class science and innovation can provide fresh ideas for our companies, our startups and entrepreneurs to enable them to compete more effectively in global markets. World-class science can support evidence-based decision-making in our public sector so that we can spend wisely in the areas that we do and regulate well. World-class science can help us preserve our national landscape and our treasures, obviously our biological heritage. But also, we're not a nation of freeloaders. We don't just rely on the science that everybody else creates. We also contribute to a global store of knowledge. And I think when the world looks at New Zealand and says, well, what contribution can New Zealand make? Well, one of the most obvious places to start is the fact that having lived in a country which was one of the last landmass apart from Antarctica to be peopled, and have gone through that trauma in terms of biological extinctions and the pressures of that. We have spent an enormous amount of time thinking about it, and we've developed an incredible strength in our research abilities. And so that, I think, genuinely is one of the things that we can offer to the rest of the world, as well as in terms of answering our own problems and solving our own issues, but that we can contribute. That's why we invest as much as we do in science and innovation. $1.3 billion this year, set to rise to $1.6 billion in the next couple of years as part of our budget packages. There'll be more to come, presumably. That we invest right across the spectrum, from fundamental inquirer-led science in the Marsden Fund area and the PBRF funding in universities, through to the mission-led sciences, national science challenges and capability building in the CRIs, through to encouragement of business R&D in Callaghan. That whole package is all about extending it in all the various different ways. So the national science challenges, as you know, respond to particular issues, looking to science to help solve problems or challenges facing New Zealand, and there's 11 of them. And the key to them that we see it is that the bringing together collaborative, multidisciplinary research, science and technology, to get people in the same room and in the same programs talking to each other. And this is a remarkable example of that, in the sense that, as I said, virtually every CRI and university in the country is involved in some way, as well as many external groups. And that's appropriate given the size of the challenge that we have. So focused on that goal of preserving and enhancing what is special about New Zealand, is what I see as an important role that you've got. And I also see the National Science Challenges as being an example of how we innovate ourselves in the way that we conceive science and how we go about it. And I wish you all the very best in that regard. In terms of your challenges, I've got this great long list of things that you do, which you all know about, so I won't tell you about that in particular. But I am very interested to see how the work's being done on cost-effective toxins and control tools for the worst predators that we've got, and the science needed to develop these is a key part of the predator-free program and part of the foundation of the strategy. Likewise, I'm going to be paying a keen interest in the work on the Kāri dieback disease. If we're to preserve, and that's of particular concern to all Aucklanders who the Kāri is an essential part of our sense of who we are. So, and I do also acknowledge the substantial body of Matauranga Māori associated with the land and its flora and fauna and the traditional ways of managing our natural environment. Accessing this knowledge in ways that recognise the role of tangata whenua as kaitiaki will enrich the solutions developed by this challenge. So, with those few words, my primary purpose in coming here really is to simply encourage you in the work that you do. Thank you for the effort that you're making in terms of working together. I know it's sometimes a lot easier to carry on in your own particular institutions, but coming together in this way and trying to harness the potential that we've got across the country is very powerful. There are few challenges more dear to the heart, I think, of New Zealanders than this one, and I do wish you all the very best for the years to come. There's no pressure, but we have very high hopes and aspirations for this challenge. It is a very substantial contribution we continue to make in science, and we do it because we want to achieve all those things that I've outlined before. And so, over the next few days, you're going to be talking about all sorts of progress that you make. I'm keen to extend that knowledge as far as we can, and encourage you to talk about it as much as you can in your various institutions, because New Zealanders are always keen to know what's going on and how things are progressing. But fundamentally, just want to thank you for the work that you do, and just acknowledge you all and encourage you over the next few days. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come and talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We've got time for one or two questions if anybody has anything particular they'd like to ask before we finish the day. I know it's been a long day and we've got stuff to do after we get out of here. But is there any quick question that anybody would like to ask? If not, I've got one quick one, Minister, and that is, you mentioned that the National Science Challenges are themselves an example of innovating, if you like, in how we do science in New Zealand. Do you have any advice or comments or suggestions for us as a collective group here to give you and your colleagues the evidence or support you need to, if you like, test, evaluate that innovation and reinforce your support for National Science Challenges?
Oh, well, no, I mean, look, I think you're starting off with like I say, a very, very strong support base across New Zealand for the work that you do. And it's one of those things that everybody understands, and everybody wants you to succeed. So it's actually a very useful discussion to have in terms of the tools that you have available and the investment that we make in terms of maintaining capability and scientific understanding, but not just in hard science, but in communicating that science and connecting with the many different elements of the of public society, I suppose, that are interested, because it's not just the science, but how you actually get it to work in every village and every town across the country. So all I'd encourage you to do is concentrate on the task at hand, keep talking about it, and keep looking for opportunities to spread the word, because every month there's a new program of some sort or something else coming up, attracting people's attention. And so just when you're working on something for 4 or 5 years, it's easy for people to forget about that. And so I encourage all the National Science Challenges to just keep talking about the work you're doing, reminding people of the challenge that you've got. And also just reminding I spend a lot of my time reminding all the various ministers around the place that this is going on, and don't forget about it, and make sure that you plug it in with all the work that you're doing, and they do it enthusiastically, because like I say, there's so much at stake here. So look, I think it's an exciting time. I think notwithstanding all the challenges that we have, and we're so conscious of that, this week with the Myrtle Rust thing, I still think it's still fundamentally optimistic that when we look at our history as a country, we've gone through a long period where things were getting worse, and now we can look forward for a period where we can actually strengthen what we've got and build on it, and bequeath an even more beautiful place for our children and grandchildren. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Minister, for taking time to meet with us today to pass those few comments. I think we're all particularly pleased to hear your reference to preserving and enhancing what's special for New Zealand as being central to the way your government is thinking and its expectations of science. And I think we're all, in this room here, we're all very committed to ensuring that we can fulfil our part in meeting that expectation that you have. So once again, can I just ask you all to thank Minister Goldsmith for his time here today, and then I'll ask Andrea to come up and round the day off for us. Thank you very much.